In my last outrageous episode, I tackled the movie Fall Time, or rather, Fall Time tackled me. But now I'm ready to get to the bottom of another gay movie, the second of 3 very different movies that are woven into my journey as a gay man. I've got some thoughts, so let's connect those dots. From the time I was young, I really loved TV, music, and movies, and even magazines. On the culture of pop, I have feelings and thoughts. Come along for the trip and we'll connect those dots. I'll tie things together that you might not know on a wild gay ride called Garth's Pop Culture. Oh! Episode 2, Another Gay Movie. Content warning, I'll be talking about a movie that has very sexual situations, offensive crude humor, and I'll be revisiting some of the abusive situations in Fall Time as they relate to the more empowering scenarios in Another Gay Movie. So in my last episode, I covered the impact Fall Time had on me as a closeted 17-year-old who was afraid of the way my sexuality might be used against me. The movie still haunts me because of how strongly I associated the homoeroticism with the potential for danger or harm. But in the years that followed, I was able to come out to Felix, my best friend since childhood, and he told me that when I was ready, he would take me to my first gay club. So after the Melanie C concert in 2001, I turned to him, like a flower leaning towards the sun, and said, "Take me to the Barn," which was a legendary dance club in Toronto. And going to the club with Felix really was a whole new world. And being there with him, hearing all the amazing remixes, I was all... Later that year, I asked him to take me to the Gay Village, and he introduced me to an amazing LGBT video store called 724 at Church and Wellesley. And that also felt like a life-changing moment. I also joined an LGBT group at my university, where I met my other best friend, Mr. A. And Mr. A would go on to hold LGBT movie nights on campus. And I paused to admire the fact that the bag of popcorn references Party Monster as if it knows it's going to an LGBT film night. Oftentimes, we would rent shorts programs from 724 to show at our campus film nights. And Mr. A and I also started to see a lot of films at the Inside Out LGBT Film Festival in Toronto. One of the movies we saw was Another Gay Movie in 2006. The screening was attended in person by director Todd Stephens and Kids in the Hall legend Scott Thompson. And even though the movie is a crude, offensive comedy, it showed the importance of gay places and gay spaces that my closest friends were introducing me to. But before we get to Another Gay Movie, we have to take a trip back to 2006. Edge Media Network has a fabulous review of the 15th anniversary edition of Another Gay Movie, and it really sets the tone for what 2006 was like for gay people. And aside from 2006 being George W. Bush's America and Stephen Harper's Canada, 2006 was a very bizarre time for gay pop culture. GLAAD called out American Idol for being homophobic, and as TMZ notes, this was after Ryan Seacrest and Simon Cowell frequently traded on-air insults, each implying the other was gay. Just the height of comedy. Beloved dance diva Kim English, rest in peace, regularly performed at pride events and gay clubs, and told Metro Weekly in 2002, "I feel more free to be myself among a gay crowd than I do at my church." So it really didn't bring the gay community unspeakable joy to hear Kim say in a 2006 interview with Next Magazine, "I don't believe it's a lifestyle God agrees with, but it's not my place to say one way or another." She issued a statement in the following issue saying, "My love for each of you has always been genuine and true, and I've never lied to any of you." And to be fair, she continued performing at pride events long after that. But in another bizarre twist, Gregory T. Angelo, who interviewed Kim in 2006 and called out LGBTQ inequalities in his articles, became a log cabin Republican and worked with politicians and administrations who actively try to harm the LGBTQ community, in my opinion.
It's disgusting.
Will and Grace ended its original 8-year run, yet Sean Hayes, who played the very flamboyant Jack, didn't officially come out until 2010. And when he did, he was a little cranky about it. However, he did later apologize and explain his delay in coming out. And Toronto's Fab magazine still carried the disclaimer, the appearance of anyone in this magazine is no guarantee that they are gay, just Fab. Even when stars like Lance Bass did say to the closet, some of the reactions were pretty harsh. In About magazine, the aptly named Some Bitchy Queen wrote, "He came out the way it should be, when he was damn good and ready, or when he needed the extra cash," referencing his People magazine cover story. They went on to say, "Honestly, does anyone really care about Lance Bass?"
Your tone seems very pointed right now.
Some of Lance's quotes didn't age well, like when he said, "I've met so many people like me. I kind of call them the SAGs, the straight acting gays. We're just normal, typical guys. I love to watch football and drink beer. I hope it was a Bud Light. But the Advocate rightly condemned the vitriol aimed at Lance, saying, "When Lance or Rosie or Jim McGreevy put it all out there, they suddenly find all our hopes and fears pinned to their lapel, and our residual anger dumped on their heads," and went on to state, "The risks of coming out are depressingly high for entertainers, athletes, and politicians, people whose careers depend on wide public adoration." So my point, and I do have one, is that the era was very paradoxical. There was still a lot of concern about stereotypical masculinity. Some of the allies that we thought would have our back didn't always come through for us, and straight actors were getting acclaim for playing gay roles, while gay actors playing flamboyant characters didn't necessarily want to be known as gay in real life. And that brings us to another gay movie. There's a great interview with Jonah Blechman from Rebel Without a Closet, where he talks about how he was initially hesitant to take on the role of Nico, but that blowing out his femininity helped him redefine his masculinity. And he discusses the stigmas and difficulties of being an out gay actor taking on gay roles at that time. And in its own way, another gay movie was already bucking stereotypes by having 4 lead characters who were openly gay, living their lives, wanting to get laid. It felt radical at the time to take the template of American Pie, a universe where LGBT characters were basically non-existent, and apply that to gay teenagers without the trauma, despair, or tragedy of other LGBT films at the time, including Brokeback Mountain. Director Todd Stephens talks about this, along with most of the main cast members of Another Gay Movie, in an excellent oral history about the film at AV Club. I highly recommend checking that out. The movie isn't without its problematic elements. Anthony Collins acknowledges this in his original 2006 review for Fab magazine, noting, "The film has plenty of eye-rolling gags, including racist and ableist jokes, worthy of the teen franchises it spoofs. Some of this gets discussed pretty frankly in the AV Club oral history of the film. But however imperfect the film is, it was exciting to get our slice of the pie, so to speak. If straight folks were able to be hot for Teacher, why couldn't horny gay teens be as well?" Before anyone panics, the teens in this film are in the grand tradition of Grease or 90210. I was 26 when the movie came out, and the lead actors are at least my age or older. So we're safe to enjoy the display of more buns on a Wonder Bread truck, and plenty of VPL. And I'm not talking Vermont Public Libraries. Aside from the sex rompery, many scenes in the film take place at the gay video store where Nico's mom, played by Stephanie McVeigh, and many of the other characters work and congregate. It's very reminiscent of Toronto's 724, and it's an important time capsule of how important stores like that were in the era before streaming. 724 and stores like it gave people like me and countless others a way to see queer content that didn't get wide distribution. I also love that one of the only pictures I have of myself in front of 724 is with a Trojan man at Pride.
The costume is correct.
The movie focuses on the misadventures of the 4 leads, featuring Jonah Blechman as Nico, Michael Carbonaro as Andy, Mitch Morris as Griff, and Jonathan Chase as Jared. These 4 young men are trying to lose their anal virginity the summer after graduating high school, but there's also a bevy of supporting characters that are worth mentioning as well. Ashlie Atkinson played Muffler, the boisterous lesbian counterpart to American Pie's Stifler, and Angela Oh tackled the role of Tiki, one of the cheerleaders that Muffler gets to know quite well. John Lypsinka Epperson and Scott Thompson pair up as Andy's mom and dad, and Graham Norton appears as Mr. Puckoff, or Rodzilla if you're nasty. Another standout in the supporting cast is Angel, played by Darryl Stephens, who was the star of Noah's Ark. He steams up the screen in Another Gay Movie and released a memoir titled Required Reading, How to Get Your Life for Good, talking about his experiences as a black gay actor in Hollywood. And James Getzlaff plays Bo, one of the Bad News Bears who flirts with Jared. And Getzlaff was the star of Boy Meets Boy, the Bravo dating show where producers secretly tried to trip him up with straight men competing with the gay men for his affections.
This is so wrong.
Speaking of Bad News Bears, I love the baseball scene where the Bad News Bears face off against the Frisky Chickens, with the bears in leather and the chickens in crop tops. The scene ends like a pride parade, and that is pretty darn fabulous. There are also some clever parodies woven throughout the film. Griff has a nightmare that's very Carrie-esque, and Carrie is probably one of the best shorthands for the trauma of high school. But instead of pig's blood pouring over Griff in his dream, it's a substance that other types of pigs might enjoy. Nasty pigs! Todd Stephens also gives a wink to the coming out scene in one of his earlier films, Edge of 17, and Stephanie McVeigh plays the mother in both films. Nico comes out to his mom in an outfit best described as great shape Barbie couture.
I think I like guys.
Duh! What took you so long?
And even though it's over the top, I could totally relate to it. At 20, I dramatically turned my head to the side and declared, "Mom, I go the other way." And she replied she cared more about my grades. She later apologized if it seemed like she didn't have the appropriate gravitas for the moment, but to me it meant the world. It meant that she wasn't going to treat me any differently. And I really was failing 2 classes that year. I also loved seeing Nico's mom show home movies of little Nico dressing up as Madonna because it reminded me of myself at 6 or 7 strutting around as Wonder Woman. The heart of the scene is that we have those little tells about ourselves that other people notice, even when we think we're doing a great job of playing it straight.
See how you already have that little swish in your step?
This brings me to a really dark yin and yang, where I'm going to connect Jonah Blechman's character Joe from Fall Time to Nico in another gay movie. In Fall Time's most terrifying scene, Joe was getting his ass slapped by Stephen Baldwin's character Leon, and Leon is climbing on top of him and looks like he's almost ready to assault him. In another gay movie, Nico is slapping his own ass and climbing on a man he wants to climb on because he's empowered in his sexuality. Unfortunately, Nico's hookup ends up with the wrong kind of explosiveness because he overdoes his preparations. And that got me thinking the biggest problem for Jonah's characters in 2 completely different movies were caused by douches. But seriously, the contrast between those 2 scenes reminds me of how dark things felt when I was scared and closeted, watching Fall Time and relating to Joe's character, and feeling like my sexuality could lead me to harm, versus the brightness of Nico in another gay movie, showing how liberating coming out can feel, because you get to start defining yourself on your own terms, and not by what anyone else is trying to impose upon you. I know coming out is a privilege, and it's not easy for everyone, and there are far too many countries in the world that still criminalize homosexuality. That's why I want to highlight Rainbow Railroad. They do excellent work helping LGBTQ+ people relocate from dangerous situations all over the world. I highly recommend checking out their website, and please consider donating. Scott Thompson is also a yin and yang moment for me in the film. I love seeing him read Men's Workout, because that was like the magazine guys bought when they were too afraid to buy gay magazines. I'm sure some of the fitness tips were legit. I mean, a lot of guys probably got a good one-arm workout with it. But seriously, this is the front of Men's Workout. That's the back. This is the centerfold. And this is how they recommend you cool down after your workout. I honestly don't think this magazine was aimed at straight men.
Duh!
But I do need to give a trigger warning about the next part of this segment. The cringiest moment in the movie comes with a very, very tasteless joke about abuse.
How did you know when you were ready to have sex?
Oh, well, unfortunately, my Uncle Earl made that decision for me.
Oh my god! This is so wrong.
Scott's character is fashioned after Eugene Levy's father to Jason Biggs' character in American Pie. And making this even more meta is that Eugene's son in real life, Dan Levy, is gay. I honestly hope that Dan has not had any conversations with his father as awkward as the ones in these 2 movies, though he may have some questions about the way his father was dressed in Armed and Dangerous. On the other hand, John Candy's look in that film, as others have pointed out, is simply divine. After several embarrassing misadventures, including hookups gone wrong and a Deflategate incident involving a button enhancer at a gay bar, much like the ones advertised in Men's Workout, everything finally falls into place at Muffler's Labor Day soiree. The glue that holds a lot of the wacky antics together is the chemistry between Jared and Griff, and at Muffler's party, they finally realize that they... And after several false starts, all 4 men finally... And they did that thing... Boy meets boy as Angel and Bo tag team Andy. Angel has my favorite line of the movie when he's all... You got room for one more? Like he's sliding into a booth at Denny's, and soon enough Andy is making the 2 men disappear into him like a magic trick. And that's the Carbonaro effect. Inside Carbonaro, indeed. Nico also gets to hook up with Grandpa Muffler, played by George Marcy, and he has my other favorite line in the movie when he says...
Nico! Heaven to Betsy! F*** Grandpa's ass!
Cheers to that, and I have my final thoughts coming up. One of the most moving things to me is reading reactions from people who discovered the movie as teenagers. Writer Mickey Keating did a great interview with Todd Stevens and Jonah Blechman where he recalls, "I realized I had watched another gay movie when I was just 15 years old, hidden from my family," and goes on to say, "I remember feeling normal." That is such a powerful statement, and I recommend reading Mickey's full interview with Todd and Jonah and his thoughts on the movie. There are also people who've written on Jonah Blechman's Facebook page saying, "I remember watching this when I was 16 and still in the closet, late at night when everyone was asleep. It was my escape to the world I felt comfortable in." Quotes like these emphasize the importance of representation and how important it is for younger generations to see themselves on screen and feel like it's okay to be their authentic selves. I will forever love Nico for reading a TV guide during one of his hookups because I'm a little bit of a TV guide aficionado myself. But the funny thing to me is that the TV guide he's reading is actually one of the crossword puzzle issues and not the one with local listings. For my own sanity, I have to believe that the character of Nico is the phoenix that rose from the ashes of Jonah's character Joe in Fall Time. I know that Joe wasn't necessarily a gay character, although I do think there were some sprinkles, but that character's life is tragically cut short, and that still upsets me so much. So watching Jonah Blechman bring Nico to life in such a vibrant, colorful way, living a boldly gay life, really means a lot to me. And even Jonah's real-life work, elevating and promoting LGBT voices and stories through potent PR and streaming service Reverie, soothes my soul after being traumatized by Joe's fate in Fall Time. I also loved Andy bringing his swim trunks to his hookup with Mr. Puckoff, because Mr. Puckoff listed water sports as one of his interests in his Rodzilla profile. It reminded me of the naivete that I had when I was a teenager, thinking that nipple clamps are kind of weird and hilarious. I'm not kink-shaming, but I do recommend checking out What's the Safe Word for informative and educational dives into all kinds of fetishes. The soundtrack to Another Gay Movie really slaps, with an original theme song from Nancy Sinatra, gay artists like Caswell, and Shannon's classic Let the Music Play. I recently saw Shannon as part of the 90s Nostalgia Tour in Toronto, and she whipped the crowd into a frenzy, like she was Rodzilla or something. Of the 4 original lead actors, only Jonah Blechman returned for the follow-up 2008 film, Another Gay Sequel. The AV Club Oral History of Another Gay Movie details how agents pressured the other actors not to return. However, the sequel did feature RuPaul a year before Drag Race, and I really do think that 2009 was the year that gay pop culture really started moving forward, with Drag Race, Glee, and Modern Family. The incredible Matt Baum, who has an amazing new book called Hi Honey, I'm Homo, does a deep dive into how radical it was to have a couple like Cam and Mitch as a regular part of the cast of Modern Family. Matt makes a good case that Cam and Mitch's presence helped influence support towards marriage equality in the US. One moment I loved in Another Gay Movie is a scene near the end, wondering out loud when they're gonna get married.
We're gonna find husbands someday.
It feels like an aspirational moment, and when the movie came out, same-sex marriage had just become a reality across Canada in 2005, and it would be roughly a decade away for all of America. Seeing something represented on screen, even if it feels far-fetched or unrealistic, can sometimes be the beginning of manifesting real change or progress into reality. Speaking of representation, the Inside Out LGBT Film Fest, where I first saw Another Gay Movie, was a big part of helping me feel a sense of community, watching LGBT stories on screen with an audience full of people just like me. It was through Inside Out and my amazing friends Rick and Ryan that I got to meet Michael Gamilla, the programming director for ImageOut, the LGBTQ+ film festival of Rochester, New York. Sadly, Michael Gamilla passed away earlier in 2023, and Matt Molloy posted a heartfelt tribute, noting, Michael was so passionate about the arts and bringing diverse films from around the world to our community. Growing up LGBTQ+ can feel lonely at times, but seeing yourself reflected in stories on the big screen can make it feel less that way. Speaking of community, it's important to find your tribe and always make sure you have some bros to lean on. In the next episode, we're jumping into modern times where Billy on the Street meets Hallmark hunk Luke McFarlane and sparks fly in Bros. Bonus shout out to my awesome friend Chantel, who gave me one of the magazines used in today's episode. And Chantel and Amy are the hosts of the amazing Borgen podcast, covering the show Borgen, which is full of Danish political intrigue, LGBT plot twists, and I say yes please to all of that. Or, yeah, I might be butchering that, even though one of my grandfathers was Danish. Anyways, tune into the Borgen podcast and stay tuned for the next episode where I will dip my toes into some bros. I said what I said.